Stable Diffusion 3 has been out for about a day now, and it seems to be a bit of a dumpster fire, with the model struggling with certain basic tasks such as human anatomy. However, when you can get the model to perform, it does create significantly better images than SDXL, with more detail, more sharpness, more clarity, if you can get the model to behave. But worry not. The community's been hard at work, and I've gone through the various Discords, Reddits, and done my best to compile the best practices, tips, and tricks to use with Stable Diffusion 3. And I will admit, we shouldn't have to be doing many of these. Some of these are a bit of a convoluted way to get the model to perform at the level that we need it to, but I hope you'll agree with me that the results are worth it. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So if you've tried prompting how you might normally prompt with SDXL or with SD 1.5 with simple prompts, this is where Stable Diffusion 3 starts to struggle. You can get good images with simple prompts, but the model tends to prefer a very verbose, descriptive, long-winded prompts. And this is actually where a large language model like ChatGPT can be your friend. In fact, there are even nodes that you can grab that interface directly with OpenAI's ChatGPT, Llama, and so on, where you can take your simple description and you'll get back a detailed prompt. And you couldn't find a better place to use that than Stable Diffusion 3. So you can see here, I've put in a simple prompt, anime woman drinking a cup of coffee. And if we remove the anime token, you'll see that we get an okay image. The issue with the hands is prevalent throughout all of the Stable Diffusion 3 attempts that I've seen. You'll almost always require a hand detailer to fix the hands. Now, the image does follow the prompt, but there's nothing particularly impressive about it. So let's start by feeding this into ChatGPT. And what I've told it is that I need it to give me back detailed prompts based on the description that I give it. So let's tell it, let's try this one. And if we look at the prompt more carefully, it's a woman sitting in a cozy cafe drinking a cup of coffee. She is a Caucasian woman with a warm, fair skin and medium length, wavy brown hair. So it goes into detail describing her hair, the atmosphere, certain intangible feelings that we might get from the image. It goes on to describe the cafe as well and elaborate further on that cozy environment. So let's grab this and once again, drop it into our prompt. And we can see that it is a substantially better image with the hands almost performing decently. She's holding the cup in a decent manner. I mean, it's not perfect. You've still got some issues here, but it's significantly better than the one we had before. There's a nice sense of atmosphere and so on. Here's a few other prompts that we can try out once again with that longer approach. We're describing a female character standing at a train station. We've got details on her character, what she's wearing, the atmosphere, the time period, the train station, and so on. And we can see here that it did struggle to get the ethnicity right. We requested a Caucasian girl, but it seems to have given us someone of a slightly more Asian origin. And we did specify striking blue eyes. So I'm not really sure why that didn't work, but we can go ahead and try some tricks from older Stable Diffusion models. In this case, let's add this element in parentheses. And there we go, we got a slightly better result. We still don't have the blue eyes and the face could probably go through the face detailer, but the details are pretty decent. The anatomy seems to be fine. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting in how we can get creative with how we use the same prompt. So right now, I've showed you how to apply the prompt as a single text block into the clip encoder, which then feeds into our K-sampler. However, there's a different way we can feed the prompt into the clip encoder, and that is with the node clip text encode SD3. I haven't experimented too thoroughly with this, but from what I have read on the Stable Diffusion 3 Discord, the best practice is to put in here in clip I a brief description of your subject. This is where the focal point of the image is going to be. In the second clip over here, the middle one is where you want to put elements that describe the image, such as the camera, whether it's got ethereal nature, information about style, and so on. And then the majority of the description here in the third panel. Now, I haven't been able to replicate those experiences as described on the Discord, but splitting a prompt and putting it into this format has yielded me different results. So let's go ahead and try and do exactly that. our subject is this gothic Caucasian girl standing at an old weathered train station. She has an ethereal, almost ghostly presence with pale skin all the way down to the hair. All of this, we could go ahead and grab that and drop it up here. For the middle clip, we are putting in some camera particulars to help give it that crisp and sharp look. And then down here at the bottom, we will describe a little bit more about the train station. Now, I don't think we're gonna get quite the result that we want, and we will need to move some of these around, but it's a good starting place. So let's go ahead and feed that conditioning into our K-sampler. Okay, well, you can see how splitting up the prompt has yielded some of the results in the way that we wanted. So we did get our subject, a Caucasian-ish woman. The train station does look weathered, but we've lost that ethereal kind of medieval Victorian look and feel. Let's actually move the bulk of the description down here, and let's leave it up here as simply a gothic Caucasian girl is standing at an old weathered train station. And then we reiterate it down here along with all of the details. And there you go. Once again, the model seems to be leaning very Asian for this particular set of prompts. I'm not sure why, but I don't want to spend too much time fiddling around with it. Now, if we come back to our vanilla text box and we try out a couple of more things, as I mentioned earlier, one of the areas the model struggles in is when you direct it to pose humans in a certain way. In this case, we're going to do something simple such as woman sitting at a bench. And we can see here, this is an example of the situation where the image is not rendered properly. We told it to put a woman sitting on a bench, and it's given us that, but there's all sorts of strange artifacting. The legs are all messed up, the hands are all messed up, she's kind of half floating off the ground, and if I'm honest, this is one of the better images that I've seen. Now, the community's discovered some tokens that you can add into the image to help get considerably better results. So if we take a simple prompt here, which as I mentioned to you earlier is not best practices, we want to try and stick to longer prompts. And in fact, let's actually see what happens when we go in with a detailed prompt before I show you guys this new little trick. So we've now taken our park bench prompt and we've made it longer. And even then you can see here that we do get a pleasant image, but there's all sorts of strangeness happening here in the prompt. Legs are messed up, hands are kind of diving into the clothes, and all sorts of weirdness happening here. So if we go back and simply change it to women sitting on bench, and simply add in those magical tokens, and you can add them at the beginning of the prompt, at the end of the prompt. I'll just let the results speak for themselves. And lo and behold, we get a phenomenally better image with almost perfect anatomy, good looking, good proportions. She is sitting a little bit high up on the bench, but we could just say she's practicing her squats. No matter how you say it, it's significantly better. Now, the issue here is that the image is a drawing, and this is where one of the big issues with Stable Diffusion 3 is it doesn't like to take this and turn it into a photograph. We can see here that the model obviously understands anatomy. It just doesn't understand it when it comes into the context of photography and trying to direct the character to do something specific. But I do recommend trying out these tokens if you are trying to put together an image and you're struggling. It'll just elevate the quality of it. Now, the next trick has to do with actually tricking the model into giving us the results that we want. And we're going to do that by using a technique called prompt scheduling. So if you've tried out the default workflows provided by Stability AI on Hugging Face, you might have noticed that it comes with these conditioning set time step range. And basically what these do is they allow you to apply a different prompt to different stages of the image generation process. So we're going to take advantage of this technique to try and trick the image into getting us to where we want to go. So let's start by trying to get a woman or a character to lie on grass. And this is incredibly difficult with Stable Diffusion 3. And you can see the image is something out of nightmares. And I spent hours on this. No matter how I try and finagle it, you just can't get anything good, except with this little trick. So using the long prompt technique that we learned earlier, we're doing two things. Number one, we are tricking the model into not creating a human model or a human character until it's too late. So what we do is we say first that it's a woman leaning against a dark green slime wall, brunette hair covered with a green slime against the wall, slime dripping all over her, white sundress stained with green gloopy slime. And what we're trying to do is basically just not let the model think, and I think this has something to do with the safety features. So what we're doing is we're just trying to let the model think in the first stages of generation that we're not creating something that could be lewd, and then kind of doing a rug pull very early on in the generation with what we actually want. And because we've already inferred some of the image, we've got the structure there, the model's got no choice but to take it through to its conclusion. That's a very simplified explanation. We've got this prompt, we feed it into the conditioning set time step range, where we tell it from 0% of the generation to 7.5% of the generation, which is usually just the first step or the first couple of steps, depending on how many steps you've got. Apply this prompt. And then from the 7.5% to 100%, we apply the full prompt, which is this long description where we say, in a serene, sun-dappled meadow, a young woman lies peacefully in amidst a sea of lush emerald grass, and so on and so on. If we run the prompt, this is the image that we get, and we can see it's majorly better than everything we've had before. So tricking the model is one of the ways that you can get the result that you want. And this feeds into another technique that we're going to look at later, where we use SDXL images to kind of set the structure of where we want to go, and then we let Stable Diffusion 3 kind of finish it up. This next trick is a bit of a smaller one, but it's still worth knowing. You will have noticed a node called Model Sampling Shift. And what this node does is how the model handles denoising at different resolutions. So effectively what you want to do is, as you go higher in the resolution of what you're generating, you want to use a higher shift, and if you go lower, you use a lower shift. And that has to do with how the model looks at structure versus detail. If I remember rightly, the lower the number, the more emphasis it has on structure, and the higher the number, the more emphasis it has on detail. And that matters with the resolution because, you know, the bigger the resolution, the model has to go in and do more work on the detail. For the most part, unless you're working with resolutions outside of what Stability AI recommends, which is around that 1 megapixel mark. So for this next part, we're going to take an image that I had previously generated in SDXL. If you want to know how I made this image, link will be popping up somewhere around here. And we're going to feed it through SD3 and see what kind of result we get. We're going to keep the prompt simple, portrait of a woman, because we're feeding in the image component. Make sure you don't forget to set your denoise, because if it's set to 1, it will just erase the image completely. In this case, I set it to 60%, so it will denoise the image by 60%. And we can see here that it took the basic structure of the image and gave us this result, which is pretty good. And if we add in modern art as part of the prompt and just denoise it slightly, so in this case I'm bringing it down to 33%, you can see that we actually get a much more detailed and crisper version of the image. The eyes look significantly better, the skin looks smoother, and so on and so forth. Let's try out another image. We'll adjust the prompt accordingly and leave the denoising at around 30%. This was generated in SDXL 512 by 512, and I did need to upscale the latent to get it up to 1024, but you can see here, it's quite impressive. It brought in a whole level of additional detail and particularness to the character, and then you could run this through an actual proper upscaler. So in many ways, SD3 is the refiner you never knew you needed for SDXL. Finally, the last trick I'm going to leave you guys with, and I literally just found out about this like 10 minutes ago. I haven't even tested it, so we're going to test it out for the first time together. And that is apparently adding in random URLs to 4chan yields results. So some of this seems to have made it into the training data the way that it was encoded. So once again, let's get ourselves a reference image. Just do a simple portrait of a woman. And we've got something decent. So let's go ahead and add in 4chan.com/xyz24533u. And there you have it. By just grabbing a random 4chan reference, we have something completely different, even some signature, some border. It does something quite substantial with the image. I almost wonder if this could be an equivalent form of style reference, much like we have with Midjourney. So I'm actually going to grab a genuine 4chan and let's see what it does. Okay, so that one really didn't do much. It did kind of stick with the same art style we had before. If we come back here and just start changing out the string randomly, let's put in this random set of letters and numbers and see what we get. Okay, well, I'm sorry. It seems to stick to that general style. Let's just try one more and see what we get. Okay, there we go. So it seems to be hit or miss. These 4chan links do seem to be doing something quite drastic to the image. Let's put in a bunch of additional random numbers and see if we can get a completely different style. There we go, yeah. So something totally different. This is worth experimenting more. If you guys found this helpful, I'm actually building a prompt database over at a website called promptcrafters.co. I suggest you guys come and check it out. I'll be doing my best to document all of these 4chan references, and I'm building out a style reference database for Midjourney as well. So please come and check it out. And if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you really want to help the channel out, please come and sign up to my Patreon, where I'll be making the database available to some of my patrons, and their support makes it possible for me to create these videos. Thanks, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.